Usually when we pick a topic for these deep dives, I feel a sense of, let's call it intellectual excitement. We grab a stack of papers on AI or history or economics, and we just tear into it with this sense of adventure. But today feels different. It feels heavier.
How so?
It feels like we're walking into a minefield. Yeah. We aren't just talking about a set of abstract ideas. We're talking about a figure who sits right at the center of the 20th century like a massive black hole. You can't escape his gravity. He pulled everyone in. But if you get too close, you get crushed. We are talking about Martin Heidegger.
That is actually a perfect description, and you're right to feel that weight, because with Heidegger, you don't just get a philosophy, you get a moral crisis wrapped inside a metaphysical enigma.
Right, and that's the elephant in the room we have to acknowledge before we even open the books. On one side of the ledger, you have a man who is arguably the most important philosopher of the last 100 years.
Oh, easily. Some would say the most important since Kant.
I mean, look at the sources we have here. He influenced Sartre, de Beauvoir, Derrida, Foucault. He's cited in architecture, in psychotherapy, even in the code of artificial intelligence.
Absolutely. He effectively rewrote the source code of how we think about existence. If you've ever used the phrase lifestyle or talked about authenticity, you're unknowingly speaking Heidegger. His ideas they've seeped into the culture.
But then you flip the page, and you see the photos, you see the pin on the lapel. The man was a Nazi. And not just, I need to survive, Nazi. He was the rector of Freiburg University under Hitler. He signed his letters, Heil Hitler.
It's the ultimate separation of art and artist test, but with Heidegger, it's even trickier. Because he didn't just paint pretty pictures while holding terrible views.
No.
His work was about thinking. It was about the deepest structures of human meaning. So the terrifying question is the philosophy itself contaminated? Can you use the tools of a man who morally collapsed so completely?
That is the mission today. We are going to try to do two things that seem impossible to do at the same time. We're going to unpack his fundamental ontology, and I promise we will make that actually understandable.
His noble goal.
And we are going to look unflinchingly at his descent into National Socialism. We're stripping the varnish off.
Yeah, we have the documents to do it. We've got his magnum opus, Being and Time. We've got the biographies. And crucially, we have the Black Notebooks, his private journals that were only published recently, which really, really changed the game on how we view his anti-Semitism.
No sugarcoating. So let's start with the human being.
Yeah.
Before he becomes this giant of philosophy who is Martin Heidegger, where does this guy come from?
He's a nobody from nowhere, born 1889 in Meßkirch.
Meßkirch. That sounds very rural.
It's deep in the Black Forest, and that matters. This isn't some cosmopolitan city boy like Walter Benjamin or some of his contemporaries. He was a child of the soil.
Right.
His father was the sexton of the local Catholic church, literally the guy who rings the bells and digs the graves.
So he grows up surrounded by religion and dirt. That's a stark beginning. A very elemental kind of childhood, I imagine.
Exactly, a very conservative, Catholic, blood and soil environment. In fact, his first ambition wasn't philosophy, it was the priesthood. He actually joined a Jesuit seminary in 1909.
Father Heidegger. That's a strange alternate timeline to imagine.
Well, he didn't last long. He was discharged within a few weeks. The official reason was a heart-conditioned psychosomatic chest pains. But you can see this tension early on. He wanted the structure of the church, the rigor of it, but he physically couldn't handle the constriction.
It was too small for him.
Something like that. So he leaves the Jesuits, walks across the street to the University of Freiburg, and trades theology for philosophy.
But he keeps that religious intensity, doesn't he? I mean, looking at the accounts of his early lectures, he doesn't sound like a typical academic. He doesn't sound like he's just explaining Aristotle.
Oh, absolutely not. When he starts teaching in the 1920s, he isn't lecturing like a normal professor. Accounts from his students, people like Hannah Arendt or Hensgor Gatimer, describe him as a magician.
A magician,
yeah. He wasn't just analyzing logic puzzles. He made philosophy feel like a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
He was intense, charismatic, and used language in a way that hypnotized people. There was a rumor going around German universities that the hidden king of philosophy was reigning in the Black Forest.
The hidden king.
Mm-hmm.
And a king needs his declaration, his manifesto. Which brings us to 1927, the book that drops like a meteor, Sein and Zeit, Being and Time.
The book that changed everything.
Okay, I have tried to read this book. I think many of our listeners have probably tried and failed. It is notoriously difficult. The language is thick. He invents words. He uses hyphens like they're going out of style.
It is a fortress of a book. It was written in a rush, actually, because he needed to publish something to get a promotion to a full professorship. He basically locked himself in a cabin for a year and hammered it out. But despite the density, the core idea is revolutionary.
So let's play Blinkist here. What is the central problem he is trying to solve? Why did he write 400 pages of hyphenated German?
The core complaint is actually stunningly simple. Heidegger looks at the entire history of Western thought, from Plato and Aristotle all the way down to Descartes and Kant, and he says, "You have all made a mistake, a fundamental error. You have forgotten the most important question of all."
Which is?
The question of being.
Okay, I'm going to play the skeptic here.
Yeah.
Being. Seems like the most obvious thing in the world. Things are. I am, the table is, the microphone is. It seems pretty self-evident. Why is forgetting this such a crisis?
Because we treat being like it's just a fact, like it's the most general property of things. You have a red apple, it has the property of redness, the property of roundness, and the property of existence. We treat existence like it's just another trait on a list.
We just sort of check the box. Yep, exists.
Yeah, exactly. And Heidegger says that is catastrophic.
Right.
Because being isn't a thing. It's not an entity. He makes this distinction, and this is the first technical hurdle, so stick with me, between the ontic and the ontological.
Ontic versus ontological. Break that down.
The ontic is the realm of stuff, entities, rocks, trees, atoms, voters, stars. Science deals with the ontic. You measure it, you weigh it, you categorize it. It's the what of the world.
Okay, that makes sense. The
Okay.
inventory of the universe, all the things in the room.
Right. The ontological is the investigation of the meaning of being itself. How is it that things appear to us at all? What is the background lighting, if you will, that allows a rock to show up as a rock in the first place instead of just a meaningless blur?
So science asks, what is that thing? And Heidegger asks, what does it mean to be?
Precisely. Think of it like a movie theater. Western philosophy has been obsessed with the actors and the props on the screen. Look at that hero, look at that car, look at that explosion. We analyze the plot, the characters, the script. Heidegger is the guy standing at the back of the room pointing at the projector.
The projector.
He's asking about the light. Without the light of the projector, there is no movie. There are no characters. There is nothing. He says, we have been staring at the screen for 2,000 years, obsessing over the entities, and we have completely forgotten that there is a projector humming behind us that makes it all possible. We've forgotten the light of being.
That's a helpful image. So we are so distracted by the stuff of our lives, our jobs, our phones, our objects, that we've lost touch with the miracle that there is anything at all.
And more importantly, we've misunderstood our own being. And this is where he introduces his most famous term. He refuses to call us humans. He refuses to call us people or subjects or consciousness.
He calls us Dasein.
Dasein.
I always found this pretentious, honestly. It feels like a way to gatekeep the conversation. Why use a German term when human works fine? Is he just being difficult?
For once, no. He's trying to break a habit. If I say the word human or consciousness, what image pops into your head?
Probably a brain. Or a person, like a distinct biological unit, a mind inside a skull, a thinking thing.
Exactly. You picture a subject here, inside your head, looking at an object there, the world. It's the Cartesian view. Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. He started with the isolated mind.
The ghost in the machine.
Yes. And Heidegger hates that. He wants to smash that box. Dasein translates literally to being there.
Being there.
The there is crucial. You are never just a mind in a jar. You are always already there in a world, in a context, in a situation. You cannot be separated from your world any more than a smile can be separated from a face. We are being in the world.
Okay, being in the world, that still sounds a little abstract.
It is, but he grounds it immediately, and this is what makes him so powerful. He brings it down to earth.
This brings us to what I think is the best example in all of philosophy. If anyone remembers one thing about Heidegger, it's usually the hammer.
The famous hammer analysis. It's brilliant because it grounds all this high-flying talk in sweat and wood.
So walk us through it. How does a hammer explain the meaning of existence?
Okay. Imagine you are a carpenter. You're in your workshop. You're building a table. You reach out, grab a hammer, and start driving in a nail. In that specific moment of action, what is your relationship to the hammer?
I'm not really thinking about it. I'm thinking about the nail or the table. The hammer is just an extension of my arm. It's not even a thing.
Exactly. It's transparent. It withdraws from your view. It is, in Heidegger's terms, Zuhanden,
Ready to hand.
It is defined by its usefulness. It's in order to, you don't stare at its properties, its weight, its color, its material composition. You use it. You are absorbed in the task.
It's invisible because it works.
Right. And Heidegger argues that this absorbed practical coping is our primary way of being. We aren't scientists staring at the world. We are agents doing things in the world. But what happens if the hammer breaks?
The head flies off.
Yeah.
Or the handle snaps.
Snap. Now suddenly the transparency is gone. You stop. You look at the handle in your hand and the metal head on the floor. Now for the first time, you see the hammer.
Right. Now I'm looking at it, not through it.
You see it as a wooden object with a specific weight and mass. You might analyze why it broke. It stops being a tool and becomes a thing.
It becomes an object of study.
Yes, it goes from ready to hand, Zuhänden, to present at hand, Vorhanden. It becomes an object of theoretical study, something with properties.
So the scientific view, looking at things as cold, static objects, only happens when things go wrong. Or when we're detached.
Or when we step back and intentionally detach ourselves, like a scientist does. But Heidegger's point is that Western philosophy, since Plato, has assumed that the present-at-hand view, the scientific view, is the real reality, and our everyday use is just secondary or sloppy. Heidegger flips it. He says, no, our everyday, messy, involved engagement is the primary reality. The scientific view is a derivative, a more abstract way of looking at things that only emerges when our practical flow is interrupted. We know the world by using it, not by staring at it.
That's actually a huge shift. It feels humbler. It puts philosophy back in the workshop, in the kitchen, not just the ivory tower. It says that the carpenter knows the hammer better than the physicist who could tell you its atomic structure.
In a fundamental way, yes. The carpenter knows it's in order to. The physicist knows its properties. Heidegger privileges the in order to. This also redefines what knowing is. It isn't just data processing. Knowing is know-how. It's familiarity.
Like driving a car. I don't think about the physics of internal combustion. I just drive. The car's ready to hand. But if it breaks down...
It becomes very present at hand. Suddenly you're looking at this lump of metal and thinking about spark plugs and engine oil.
You know your house not because you've memorized the blueprints, but because you can walk to the bathroom in the dark without stubbing your toe. That is Dasein.
That's a perfect example of it. That's being in the world.
I love that distinction. It feels very intuitive. So if we are these beings who are absorbed in the world, dealing with tools and tasks, how are we structured? Because Heidegger doesn't just stop at we use hammers. He builds a whole anatomy of the soul, or at least the self.
Yes, this is division 2 of the book. This is where he gets into what we now call existentialism, even though he didn't like the term. He asks, if we aren't just biological machines, what are the fundamental structures, the existentialia that make Dasein tick? And he finds 3 big ones.
Okay, like that.
First is understanding. But again, this is Heidegger, so it's not intellectual understanding. He means the ability to project into possibilities.
What does that mean?
To Dasein, a chair isn't a collection of atoms, it's a possibility for sitting. A road is a possibility for travel. A door is a possibility for entering or exiting. We are constantly seeing the world in terms of what we can do. We're throwing ourselves into the future. We are always ahead of ourselves.
We are possibility machines. We are defined not by what we are at this exact moment, but by what we can be.
Yes, that's the core of his existentialism. The second structure is attunement, or moods, stimming.
Now, usually when people talk about moods, they dismiss them. Oh, I'm just cranky today, ignore me. Or, I'm being irrational. We treat them like clouds passing over the sun of our real rational mind.
Heidegger says that's a profound mistake. You are never not in a mood. Even being calm or neutral is a mood. And moods aren't just internal weather, they are how the world is disclosed to us. They are fundamental ways of knowing.
How so? Give me an example.
Think about when you are deeply anxious. How does the world look?
It looks hostile or strange. A ringing phone feels like a threat. Every sharp corner looks dangerous. The world feels alien.
And if you are in deep love?
Everything glows. The annoyance of traffic doesn't matter. The city sounds like music. It's like wearing rose-colored glasses, but more than that. The world itself seems to have changed.
Exactly. The mood isn't paint you put on the world. It's the light you see the world in. You can't see the world without a mood. Moods disclose what matters. Think of a do not disturb sign on a hotel door. A mood hangs a sign on the world telling it how to appear to you.
And this connects to another big Heidegger word, right? This feeling of being subject to moods we don't choose. We are thrown.
Yes, Geworfenheit, thrownness. We don't choose to be born. We don't choose our parents, our time period, our native language, our body type. We are thrown into this movie halfway through, and we have to figure out the plot while we're acting in it. That is the tragedy and the beauty of Dasein.
And this leads to the third feature, discourse or language. We articulate this world we are thrown into. We talk about it.
Right. Language is how we make sense of our understanding and our moods. But all of this, understanding, mood, discourse, is held together by one superstructure. He says it's the fundamental constitution of Dasein.
Kehre. Sorge.
Sorge.
Kehre. It sounds nice and gentle, like, I care about you. But he means it more structurally, right?
Yes.
It's not an emotion.
Exactly. It's not a feeling. It's the architecture of our being. He means that to be Dasein is to be concerned. A rock doesn't care that it's a rock. A table doesn't worry about tomorrow. But Dasein is a being for whom its own being is an issue. We care about our existence. We are anxious about it. We plan for it. We regret it. To be human is to care.
So we are thrown into this world, projecting ourselves into the future, caring about what happens. But we aren't alone. We aren't doing this in a vacuum. And this brings us to the part of Heidegger that hits the hardest in the age of social media. The social self. The they. Das Man.
Oh, this is the most blistering critique in the book. It's absolutely savage. Heidegger asks, who are you really? And his answer is, most of the time, you aren't you at all. You are Das Man.
The one, or the they, or some people translate it as the anyone.
It's that invisible authority we refer to when we say, well, one doesn't do that, or they say kale is good for you. Who is they?
Nobody. Everybody. It's the phantom consensus, the voice of the average.
Exactly. It's the average, the herd. Heidegger says that because we are social beings, our default setting is to drift along with the crowd. He has this savage quote. We take pleasure and enjoy ourselves as they take pleasure. We read, see, and judge literature and art as they see and judge.
We find shocking what they find shocking. That part always gets me. Even our outrage is scripted. It's the dictatorship of the norm.
It is a dictatorship.
Yeah.
And the seductive thing about the they is that it relieves us of the burden of choice.
Right. It makes life easy.
So easy. If you just do what everyone else does, go to the right college, get the stable job, buy the gray sectional sofa, watch the popular Netflix show, you don't have to take responsibility for your own existence. You can just float along. Heidegger calls this fallenness. It's inauthentic existence.
Inauthenticity. So most of us are walking around as they selves, just copying the script written by an anonymous public. But Heidegger thinks we can be authentic, right? He offers a way out. What does authenticity look like for him?
Authenticity, or Eigenlichkeit, literally means ownedness, taking hold of your own life. But the path to get there is not fun. You don't get there by going on a retreat or meditating on a beach. No. You get there through anxiety.
Angst.
And he distinguishes this from fear. Fear is always about something specific. I'm afraid of a spider. I'm afraid of losing my job. I'm afraid of that dark alley. Anxiety is different. Anxiety is about nothing.
Nothing in particular.
Right. It's that feeling when the world suddenly loses its significance. The normal, ready-to-hand world of tools and tasks just falls away. The they stops making sense. The things you usually do seem meaningless. You feel uncanny, unheimlich, literally not at home. Anxiety strips away the comfort of the herd and leaves you standing alone, face to face with the sheer strangeness of your own existence.
That sounds terrifying. Why would we want that?
Yeah, because only when you are stripped of the illusions of the they can you choose your own life. Anxiety individualizes you. It forces you to ask, what am I going to do with my life now that the public script is gone? And the ultimate clarifier for this, the thing that makes anxiety truly hit home, is death.
Being towards death.
Exactly. Death is the one possibility that is non-transferable. No one can die for you. That they can't save you from it. The public talks about death as something that happens to other people, an event we'll all get to eventually. But Heidegger says you have to confront it as your own most possibility. When you truly confront your own finitude, not just intellectually knowing you'll die, but feeling the limitedness of your time, that shatters the triviality of everyday life. It frees you to live authentically, to make choices that actually matter to you.
So death is the ultimate life coach.
In a very dark German way, yes. It's the wake-up call that pulls you out of the slumber of the they.
Okay, so up to this point, Heidegger sounds like this profound existential guide. He's telling us to wake up, stop following the herd, face our mortality, and live our own lives. It's powerful stuff.
It is. It's heroic. It inspired a generation.
But we have to turn the page. Because while he was writing about authenticity and escaping the herd, history was moving in a very dark direction. And Heidegger didn't just get swept up in it, he stepped right into the front row. He joined a different kind of herd.
This brings us to Section 3, the dark chapter, Heidegger and Nazism, and we have to be very precise here with the facts and the timeline.
Lay it out for us. Hitler comes to power in January 1933. Where's Heidegger? What is he doing?
Heidegger is a full professor at the University of Freiburg. He's a star. In April 1933, just a few months after Hitler becomes chancellor, Heidegger is elected rector of the university, basically the president of the university.
And he joins the party.
Yes. On May 1st, 1933, he officially joins the Nazi Party.
And this wasn't just a paperwork thing. He gave an inaugural address, right? The Rectorat's raid.
Yes. The self-assertion of the German university. It's a chilling speech to read today. He delivered it in a hall decorated with swastikas. He spoke about the self-assertion of the university, but he tied it directly to the German Revolution. He urged students to labor service, military service, and knowledge service, all aligned with the fate of the nation. He was trying to align the university with the Führer principle.
He wanted to be the spiritual leader of the university in the Nazi state.
He saw a greatness in the movement. We know this from his lectures, and we have sources saying he ended lectures with Heil Hitler. In November 1933, he signed a vow of allegiance to Hitler and the National Socialist state. But it's not just the public speeches, it's the personal betrayals. We have to talk about Edmund Husserl.
His mentor. The man who championed Heidegger's career. The man to whom being and time was dedicated. Husserl was Jewish.
Yes. Husserl had retired, but he was still an emeritus professor with library privileges. In April 1933, under the new Nazi laws, Jewish government employees were suspended. Now, formally, the order to suspend Husserl came from the state, not Heidegger personally. But Heidegger, as rector, signed the order forbidding Husserl from using the university library.
He locked his own mentor out of the library, the man who made his career possible.
Effectively. And more than that, he broke off all contact. When Husserl died in 1938, Heidegger didn't attend the funeral. He later apologized to Husserl's widow, but the damage was done. And in 1941, under pressure from his publisher, Heidegger removed the dedication to Husserl from new editions of Being and Time.
That is cold. It's professional and personal erasure. But Heidegger stepped down as rector after only a year, in 1934.
Yeah.
Why? Did he have a change of heart? Did he see the error of his ways?
This is where it gets murky. Heidegger's defenders, and Heidegger himself later, claimed he resigned because he wouldn't compromise enough with the Nazi officials. Basically, he claimed he was trying to protect the university from the worst of the politicization.
He was trying to be a bulwark from within.
That was his story. But historians view it differently. They suggest he resigned out of administrative frustration. He wasn't a good bureaucrat. And frankly, some of the hardline Nazis thought his philosophy was too abstract and weird. He wanted to be the philosopher king of the Nazi Party, but they preferred simpler biological racism. His vision of a spiritual National Socialism lost out to the thuggery.
But he stayed in the party until the end of the war.
He did. He never turned in his card. He paid his dues until 1945.
Now, for a long time, there was this debate. Was his Nazism just a political error? A stupendously bad judgment call by a man who was naive about politics? Or was it rooted in his philosophy? And this brings us to the Black Notebooks. These were published only recently, starting in 2014. What did we find in there?
The Black Notebooks were the smoking gun for many scholars. There's private philosophical journals. Before 2014, defenders could argue, well, his philosophy is about being. It has nothing to do with biological racism. You can't find anti-Semitism in Being and Time. But in these private journals, Heidegger writes explicitly about world Judaism.
And what does he say?
He connects it directly to his philosophical critique of modernity. He talks about Judaism as being ungraspable and rootless. He claims that Jewish people have a talent for calculation but lack a connection to the soil or to being. He suggests that world Judaism is a primary force of the modern technological world that uproots everything.
So he's tying his philosophical hatred of calculation and modernity directly to classic anti-Semitic tropes.
Exactly. It suggests his anti-Semitism wasn't just political opportunism, it was metaphysical. He saw Jewishness as the philosophical embodiment of the modern technological rootless world he hated. It's deeply disturbing because it weaves the hate right into his core concepts. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
And after the war,
Yeah.
when the full horror of the Holocaust was revealed to the world, what did he say? Did he fall to his knees and beg for forgiveness?
Silence. Almost total silence. He never fully apologized for the Holocaust. He never fully apologized for his involvement. In fact, he said something in a 1949 lecture that is, well, it's infamous.
Let's hear it.
He was giving a lecture on technology and how it dehumanizes the world, he said. Agriculture is now a motorized food industry, the same thing in its essence as the production of corpses in the gas chambers and the extermination camps, the same thing as blockades and the reduction of countries to famine, the same thing as the manufacture of hydrogen bombs.
Now, he equated factory farming with the gas chambers.
In its essence, he viewed them all as examples of technology gone wrong, of treating beings as mere material to be processed. While philosophically you can trace his logic about the essence of technological thinking, morally it's a monstrous comparison. It flattens the specific horror of the genocide into just another technological problem.
It's an act of profound moral evasion.
Yes. And in his famous final interview with Der Spiegel, recorded in 1966 but published only after his death, he still defended his rectorship. He never uttered a word of apology. He just said, "Only a God can save us."
That is hard to stomach. It really highlights the central conflict we started with. The man who thought so deeply about care and authenticity seemed to have a massive blind spot when it came to actual human suffering on a mass scale.
That is the tragedy of Martin Heidegger, a genius of the abstract, a moral failure in the concrete.
So after the war, he was banned from teaching for a while during the denazification process. He was classified as a follower. But he didn't stop thinking, and his philosophy shifted. Scholars call this the turn, or die care.
Yes. In his later years, roughly from the 1940s on, his focus shifts. He stops talking so much about Dasein, human existence, and starts talking about the history of being itself. He becomes much more mystical, poetic.
Less about the human condition and more about something grander.
Exactly. He claimed it wasn't a reversal, but a change in orientation. In Being and Time, he approached the question of being through Dasein. In his later work, he tries to think about being itself and how it has revealed itself differently throughout history.
And a big part of this later work is about technology. And honestly, this part feels more relevant today than ever. We touched on it with the gas chamber quote, but what is his actual critique of technology? Because he's not just a Luddite smashing machines, is he?
No, not at all. That's a common misunderstanding. He says technology is not just a tool. We usually think a smartphone is a tool, it's neutral, I can use it for good or evil. Heidegger says no. Technology is a way of revealing the world. It's a pair of glasses we can't take off. It determines what shows up for us as real.
And what kind of world does modern technology reveal?
A world of standing reserve.
Standing reserve. Bestand.
Right. It means we look at the world only as a resource to be stored, calculated, and exploited on demand. A forest is no longer a forest. It is timber inventory. A river is no longer a river. It is a hydroelectric power source. A mountain is no longer a mountain. It's a pile of coal to be mined.
And people.
That's the ultimate danger. Eventually, humans just become human resources. We become standing reserve to be optimized and used. This is what he calls gestel, or enframing. We are trapped in a framework where everything, including ourselves, must be efficient, optimized, and available for use.
That sounds exactly like the 21st century. The gig economy, self-optimization, tracking our sleep data, personal branding. We are turning ourselves into standing reserve for the market.
Heidegger saw it coming. He believed this technological thinking flattens the world. It strips away mystery and meaning and replaces it with calculability.
So what's the solution? If technology is turning us into batteries in the matrix, how do we escape?
Well, only a God can save us, as he said in that interview. He was pretty pessimistic. But on a human level, he turns to art, and specifically poetry.
Poetry. After all this talk of technology and Nazism, the answer is poetry.
For him, yes. He believed that poetic language, especially the work of the German poet Friedrich Hölderlin, could help us recover a sense of the holy, a non-technological way of revealing the world. He famously said, "Language is the house of being."
Language is the house of being. I love that phrase, even if it is a bit cryptic.
He means that language isn't just a tool for communication like pass the salt. Language discloses the world. The kind of language we use determines the kind of world we live in. In our technological age, our language has become technical, data-driven, reduced to information. He wants us to listen to the poets who use language to reveal truth and mystery, not just to transfer information. He has another famous line, "Language speaks, not man. We are participants in language, not its masters."
It's a beautiful idea that we need to re-enchant the world through language. It's such a stark contrast to the brutality of his political history.
It is. It's a philosophy of dwelling and letting be, coming from a man who supported a regime of total domination and control. The contradiction is staggering.
We can't wrap this up without looking at his personal life a bit more, because it's just as messy as his politics. Specifically, Hannah Arendt.
This is one of the most fascinating and troubling relationships in intellectual history. Hannah Arendt, a brilliant Jewish student, and Heidegger, her professor, they began an affair in 1925. He was 35, married with 2 sons. She was 19.
And this wasn't just a fling. The letters show it was an intense intellectual and romantic bond. He was the great love of her life.
It was, but they had to keep it secret. Then obviously the war comes. He joins the Nazi Party. Arendt, being Jewish, flees Germany, is interned in a camp in France, escapes, and makes her way to America. She becomes one of the most important political theorists of the century, writing The Origins of Totalitarianism,
A book about the very forces her former lover had allied himself with. And yet after the war, she reconnects with him.
She does. She visits him in Germany in 1950, and she actually becomes one of his defenders in the English-speaking world. She helped get his work translated and helped rehabilitate his reputation in America. She argued that he was a great thinker who made a personal error. She put error in quotes like a philosopher who fell into a well because he was staring at the stars.
That is incredibly generous. Too generous.
Many people think so. She once called him a potential murderer in a private letter regarding his treatment of Husserl, but she later softened. It speaks to his personal charisma. He had this magnetic, almost hypnotic effect on people, especially his students.
He also had an open marriage, essentially.
Yes. His wife, Elfriede, was a strong figure and an ardent Nazi herself, by the way. It was a complex marriage. In fact, Heidegger knew that he wasn't the biological father of one of their sons, Hermann, but he raised him as his own. And he had another long-term relationship with Elizabeth Blockman, who was also Jewish. His personal life was a web of contradictions.
Let's look at his legacy now. Despite the Nazism, despite the Black Notebooks, you can't walk into a philosophy department without tripping over Heidegger. Who did he influence?
It would be easier to list who he didn't influence. In France, you have Jean-Paul Sartre, who basically built French existentialism on a reading of being and time, though Heidegger later said Sartre misunderstood him. Then you have Jacques Derrida, who used Heidegger's critique of Western philosophy to create deconstruction.
And beyond philosophy.
Architecture Christian Norberg Schultz used Heidegger's ideas of dwelling to rethink modern architecture. Psychotherapy, there's a whole field called Dasein analysis, which is an existential form of therapy, and surprisingly, artificial intelligence.
Wait, AI. How does the anti-technology guy who hung out in the cabin influence AI?
Through an American philosopher named Hubert Dreyfus at UC Berkeley. In the 60s and 70s, early AI researchers had this idea called good old-fashioned AI. They thought the mind was just a computer processing symbols. Give a computer a dictionary and a set of grammar rules and it can understand language.
Right. The brain as hardware, the mind as software.
Exactly. Dreyfus used Heidegger to say, no, that's completely wrong. Remember the hammer. We function by being in the world, having a body, having know-how. You can't program a computer to have common sense just by giving it facts and rules. It needs a world. It needs to be ready to hand.
So Dreyfus's critique basically said you can't build a disembodied brain in a box and expect it to be intelligent.
Precisely. And this critique was hugely influential. It actually changed the direction of AI research towards embodied robotics and machine learning that learns from context, not just rules, all thanks to a guy from the Black Forest.
That is wild. And I know film buffs love him too.
Terrence Malick, the director of The Tree of Life and The Thin Red Line, he actually translated one of Heidegger's works as a student. His movies are visual meditations on being, nature, and our thrownness into the world. You can feel Heidegger in every shot.
So here we are. We have unpacked the question of being, the hammer, the anxiety, the Nazis, the poetry, the technology. What is the final synthesis? How do we hold this fractured legacy?
I don't think we resolve it. I think the lesson of Heidegger is that you have to sit with the fracture. You have to hold both things in your head at once. If you throw Heidegger in the trash because he was a Nazi, you lose the most powerful tools we have for understanding our technological age. But if you read him without the context of his politics, you're being naive and irresponsible.
You have to read him with a warning label.
A very large, flashing warning label. He teaches us that you can be the smartest person in the world, you can see deeper into the structure of reality than anyone else, and still be a complete moral failure. Intelligence is not a guardrail against evil.
That is a sobering thought. Thinking alone isn't enough. You need heart. You need ethics. You need the things his philosophy in some ways forgot.
Exactly, the human things.
So here's the thought we want to leave you with today. We talked about inframing, the idea that technology forces us to view the world and ourselves as data to be mined and resources to be used.
Standing reserve.
Right. Look at your phone. Look at your social media feed. Look at how you talk about yourself on LinkedIn. Personal brand, human capital, optimization, life hacks.
Are we treating ourselves like standing reserve? Are we inframing our own lives?
And, more importantly, if Heidegger is right and language speaks us, what is the language of the algorithm doing to our souls? If our language is reduced to hashtags, 280 characters, search engine optimization, and binary code, can we even think anymore? Or are we just processing data?
Are we still Dasein being there, or are we just users?
That's the question. Thanks for diving deep with us. It was a heavy one, but I think it was worth it.
Absolutely.
See you next time.